What's up, peeps? Beautiful people out in Expediting land. And it has been a while since I did a video on expediting driving Newcoming advice. This video is necessary and need to bring it to your attention. And this is just coming from my point of view, and also to give these newcomers about the fleet owner's or manager's contract. Okay, now this got nothing to do with the carrier you're driving for. When you are on a contract, okay, and this was a mistake that I've made. There's a basic contract to illustrate how much you get paid and etc. and all these other things. All right, when you are sitting here doing your job, and then my particular case, it's been about 3 years with the same carrier, and change is necessary to move on. In my opinion, this is how I conduct my business with anybody I drive for, a fleet owner or a fleet manager. I always make sure that the carrier is in good standings with me, first and foremost, as a driver, because you are a subcontractor, you're still independent if you're driving for somebody else and using their truck. That's going to change. I'm going to have the opportunity to become an owner op soon. I'm not going to do a video on that until it is legit set in stone. When a fleet owner or a fleet manager calls you up or illustrates to you there is a new contract, for example, in my case, there was an $800 minimum, regardless how many loads you do and how many miles you run, an $800 minimum, which means you are going to get paid. The contract negotiation was broken on their part. That's why you have to make sure. I don't give anybody a chance on contract negotiation when it comes to pay. When you sit here as a fleet manager, an owner, and you call these drivers and say there's a new contract up for pars, always by email, by any stretch of the imagination, get it in writing. All right, there was a contract breach on their part. As far as my pay, that's one thing you don't mess with. This is my pay. Now, the requirements in my case, I'll give you an example, was to be teams, okay, on time pickup and delivery, and remain in service. All right, all three requirements were met. Okay, the truck has a good inspection, the pre-trip's good to go, bam, and you don't get put out of service at weigh scales. All right, now when you have all these legitimate requirements in place and you abide by them, and that contract is breached on the fleet owner / fleet manager's side, it is time for me to part ways. When they breach their contract on their end, I do not give second or third chances on that. There is no way in hell, because in our case we had a new fleet manager hired, and it's caused a lot of issues. All right, now again, when you are a subcontractor, you're driving for an owner, and they breach their contract, they don't fulfill their end of the contract, even though you're new, guys, even though you're new, listen to me. There's people that'll take advantage. That's why I do these newcomer driving advice videos. You've got to understand that they have to fulfill their contract. Now, you have to fulfill yours too. On time deliveries, whatever the requirements are set, but always get a written contract, an updated written contract. Again, the fleet manager on their end breached the contract, I parted ways, I'm done. Straight up in the story. All right, that's how I conduct my business. That's just how I do it. Now, the changes are taking place are very positive. I'm going to do a more detailed video on these contract negotiations. You've got to get it in writing before you even get in that truck and take your next load. If you're on home time and there's an update in the contract, do not go in service until you get a contract in writing between the fleet owner / manager before you take your service. Stand up for yourself. If you are doing your part and you are doing your obligation requirements have been met. Stand up for yourself. It's difficult in this expedite business to find a legit carrier. There's so many scenarios that could take place. All right? Especially when the contract negotiations are broken. I do not stay, and I will not stay with anybody that sits here and breaks the contract negotiation with me. Hell to the no. I won't do it. I'm a very good-hearted guy. I'm a good working man. I out and do my job. Okay? Unfortunately, this happens. And it happened in my case. All right? When negotiations are broken, contract negotiations are broken on their side, I immediately part ways. That's just how I conduct my business. Now, when you do part ways and you move on, and you continue to get harassed, whatever the case may be, there's legitimate legal steps that you can take. Once again, make sure you're in good standings with the carrier so you can come back if you do find another legit owner. This kind of thing happens quite often with fleet owners and fleet managers and subcontractors. Again, if you're a subcontractor, you're driving somebody else's truck, you're just starting out, you are independent still. There is the carrier. 1, 2, fleet owner, and they have a fleet manager. That is the people that own the truck, obviously. 3, you are the subcontractor. You are still independent. There are certain requirements that has to be met in a contract for me to stay. Now, when you're out here, they're going to push you, and if you're solo or teams, doesn't matter, they're going to push you to do small loads, and all these things, which you need to do. The small loads add up, and then eventually you get the big runs too. Don't get sidetracked with that too. Like I said, this contract was breached. The $800 minimum. Once we reach the $800 minimum, then obviously the pay goes up to $900, $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, and then etc. Now, I'm being truthful about all my legit advice videos. I don't give a shit what anybody else says, okay? That's just the way it is. But unfortunately, this contract was breached, and I had to part ways. I don't stay around if the contract is breached. I just don't. And I highly advise you to be very careful if you're newcoming. Get a legitimate written contract. Update. If you've been there a year or two for the same fleet owner / fleet manager, whatever. Some owners do have fleet managers. That's for fleet managers that help these owners that have maybe 10, 20 trucks and etc. All right? Now, this is very critical. It's very important. You've got to understand that all these things with the contract negotiations will hinder you and will affect your pay, and it, of course, will affect your life. Now, everything I give to you guys, I want you to take heed, because when you're new coming into this business and you have a contract that's written up between the owner and the driver, even if they have a fleet manager, that contract is breached on their end, I'm gone. I'm done. I don't play around. I cannot play around. I cannot afford to play around. Does anybody else do that? I'm not sure. I do. I cannot stay and will not stay when contracts are breached on their end. That's what this video is about, guys. I hope you enjoy and find this information very beneficial, you beautiful people out in Expediting land. Again, I apologize for not making some more advice videos. There's been a lot of changes. This is Danny of Expediting land, signing off. See ya!